Hello, my friends, and welcome back. Thank you very much for being with me again today. Finally, we got the Russians back in business, so now I can use again the Ukrainian version of the war and the Russian version of the war. I usually make this macro analysis of the updates provided by these two sources. Obviously, I expect them to lie, but hey, who's not? And I'm going to start with Ukrinform, and then I will switch to Sputnik. My friends who watched this before, they know how it is. I'm gonna go over Ukrinform, the Ukrainian source. It is from Wednesday, 28th of June, 2023. Over there is already 4 o'clock a.m. So we are in the future. War update: more than 10 combat engagements in 3 directions. And the Russians use this form and this format. Each bullet has a meaning. The red one has the Russians shelling the Ukrainians, the blue ones are the Ukrainians shelling the Russians, the yellow bullets are locations where the Russians destroyed a UAV or helicopter or fighter jet, and the black dots are where the forces faced one another. And if you just click on one or another, they're going to give you a little summary. The Ukrainian article starts talking about, usually starts with a summary, like here: more than 10 combat engagements took place in Lyman, Bakhmut, and Maryinka. And then we're going to use the Russian map to pinpoint where those events occurred. The Ukrainians start by generalizing, saying, as I said, coming with a summary, and then they say come from north, northeast, east, southeast, south. In this case, they said that more than 10 combat engagements took place in Lyman, Bakhmut, Maryinka. Now, let's go over the map. Lyman is right here, which the Russians don't say anything about. It should be black, but it's not, black dot. And then you have Bakhmut is Artemovsk, which is already done right here. Nothing happened here according to the Russians. And then you got Avdiivka right here, where actually the Russians say something happened, and Maryinka right here. So all these things are in what? Donetsk and Luhansk right here. So let's see what the Ukrainians are saying, and then we go to the Russians. So this is stated in the evening report for the General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, published on Facebook. And I'm quoting: "The enemy focuses its main efforts on Lyman, Bakhmut, Maryinka directions." So the 3 directions that I already showed, but the Russians did not show any activity in Lyman, which is here, and Bakhmut, which is right here. So let's go and see what they say in Maryinka. Battles are raging in the city. That's Maryinka. Let's see what they say about Avdiivka. Battles are raging on the outskirts of the city. Russian forces destroyed the communications center of Ukraine's 110th Mechanized Brigade. And nothing else. They're just shelling one another. Right here in Robotino, something happened, according to the Russians. So Vladimir Rogov, chairman of the We Are Together with Russia movement, said that fierce battles were raging in the direction of the Orekovo near the village. Ukrainian troops, reinforced with armored vehicles, continued their attempts to attack. The village of Robotino itself is under the control of the Russian military. Russian forces thwarted the activity of a Ukrainian sabotage and reconnaissance group. So this is where they say they met. Now here is where the nuclear power plant is, Zaporozhye. Here is where the dam used to be, just so you know. The dam, nuclear power plant, and this is where these guys are having their counteroffensive. And this is where the Russians are saying they are having kind of an offensive. So let's go to the Ukrainians and see what they say. Now it's a summary. The General Staff noted that Russian invaders attacked the cottage house area in Kremenchuk district, Poltava region, with a Kh-22 cruise missile today. In addition, the enemy launched 20 airstrikes and more than 20 MLRS attacks on the positions of Ukrainian troops and populated settlements. Again, civilians were killed. Okay, let's move on. According to the General Staff data, the operation situation in Volyn and Polisia directions has not changed significantly. There are no signs of the formation of offensive groups. And now they start from talking about north and this area. This is where they're going to tell us, the Ukrainians, what happened there. Russian troops maintained their military presence in Severshchina and Slobozhanchina directions. The Russians fired mortars and artillery at more than 20 settlements in Kharkiv, Sumy, Chernihiv. So these are this oblast. Chernigov by the Russians, Chernihiv by the Ukrainians, Sumy, Kharkov by the Russians, Kharkiv by the Ukrainians. So they said nothing happened here, at the border with Belarus, but here it's just that the Russians are just using mortar and artillery. In Kupiansk direction, more than 20 settlements were hit with artillery and mortars, including Parabap in Kharkiv region. So they are talking about Kupiansk is right here. Kupiansk. And the Russians say about that, the Zapad battle group hammered Ukrainian troops using assault and army aviation, as well as artillery strikes. And now the Ukrainians hope we're going to go lower this way. So let's see. Where is that? Right here. In Lyman direction, which is south of Kupiansk, more than 15 settlements were hit with artillery, in particular Nevsky, Dibrova and Luhansk, and in Donetsk. In Bakhmut direction, so we go south a little bit, south of Lyman, the Russians made unsuccessful attempts to regain their lost position southeast of Ivanivske. So they talked about this area south of Sloviansk, which will go a little bit south here to Avdiivka is right here. This is Bakhmut, Artemovsk right here. Chernihiv is right here. The Ukrainians claim that they did not enter Artemovsk or Bakhmut yet, but they supposedly advanced on the flanks. The Russians say nothing. The enemy fired artillery at the areas of more than 15 settlements in Donetsk region, in Avdiivka direction, so move a little bit south of Bakhmut. The enemy launched airstrikes in the areas of Avdiivka. Artillery was fired at more than 20 settlements in Donetsk region. So that they are talking about south of Artemovsk, Bakhmut right here, Avdiivka or Avdiivka by the Russians right here. I already opened this one and said they fight at the outskirts of the city, the Russians say. Now we move to Maryinka, south of Avdiivka. Maryinka direction, the enemy carried out offensive operations near Maryinka, had no success. The Russians also launched airstrikes near Maryinka and Krasnohorivka. In addition, artillery was fired at the areas of more than 10 settlements in Donetsk region. Now we move a little bit south. In Shakhtarsk direction, the Russians carried out unsuccessful offensive operations in the direction of Rivnopil. Airstrikes were launched in the area of Storozheve and in Donetsk region. More than 15 settlements were also shelled in Donetsk. So they were talking about south of Maryinka, so this area right here. And now they're going to move down here. I'm surprised if the Ukrainians will say anything. Let's see what the Russians say about these airstrikes by the Ukrainians. Ukrainian air forces shelled the Kievsky, Kirovsky, Parabovsky and Pilipovsky district. They fired 63 155mm shells at the city. So this is Ukrainian shelling of Russian positions. Probably here the Russians downed some drones. Russian air defenses shot down a Ukrainian drone. The same here. Exactly. This is Zaporozhye region. Let's see what the Ukrainians say about Zaporozhye, if anything. In Zaporozhye and Kherson, so this is southeast since south directions, Russian troops focus their main efforts on preventing the advance of the defense forces of Ukraine. The enemy launched airstrikes in the areas of Orikhiv and Novodanivka in Zaporozhye region. Artillery was fired at more than 40 settlements, including a lot of them right here, in Kherson as well, and in Kherson region. So they say, well, it was just the Russians repelled some of our counteroffensive and shelled. Here in Zaporozhye, that's all the Russians report. And we go in Kherson. where the Russians report only Ukrainian shelling on Russian positions. Let's go back to the Ukrainians and see what else they say as a general, as a summary right here. The Russian troops suffer daily losses. About 50 wounded Russians were brought to the building of a kindergarten converted into a field hospital of Parapap. Okay, when I hear this kind of things, I'm like, you lost me. And again, we got civilians, education institutions, and then we get the personal concentrations area. So during the day, Ukrainian forces launched 12 strikes on personal concentration area and 4 more on the anti-aircraft missile systems of the Russian troops. Yes, the Ukrainians hit only military facilities here and weapons or military installations. The Russians just destroy, how do you call it, civilians. That's how it goes. Missile and artillery units hit an enemy command post, the Ukrainians claim, 2 Buk anti-aircraft missile systems, and 4 manpower, weapons, and military equipment clusters. Nothing else. Okay, well, this is the general overview over the front over there. They usually start, as I said, with a summary. They start with the north by Belarus. They start with Chernihiv, Sumy, and Kharkiv, and they go down in Luhansk, Donetsk, Zaporozhye, Kherson. That's it. Nothing very extraordinary over there actually mentioned by either side. But it's good. Maybe they just stop fighting. They would not. They have precise orders from Zimbabwe, from across Atlantic. Remember that one. Stay strong, stay smart, look for the truth, and be just.